The God of High School is based on a Korean manhwa I decided to ignore when it was first being released, and then made the unfortunate decision to stop ignoring when it became an anime. It is based around the God of High School tournament, which pits a bunch of high schoolers together in a martial arts tournament that later reveals to be a big magic fight where people borrow powers from gods and historical figures and creatures of legend to do battle against each other, all while a secret cult that wants to make their god the only god in the universe has machinations in the background. My main issue with the God of High School is that it's really boring and I didn't care about what was happening, but instead of explaining in detail why a show that decided to launch directly into a tournament arc with no actual setup is boring, and that has its central villains just be another evil cult, instead I'm going to talk about the more interesting problems with the show, namely the incredibly weak main cast. You see, whoever wins the God of High School tournament is supposed to have one wish granted them. Sounds pretty cool, right? Except for the main characters, which are a trio of people, have no actual motivation to be participating in this tournament. The central main character said that he forgot about the wish part when asked what his wish would be, and he just wanted to fight strong people. And I was like, okay, Goku. And then as it turns out, he's literally Goku. Then the other guy had a good reason. He wanted to save his dying friend. Sounds engaging, right? Well, then his friend dies in like episode 3, and then he just stops having a motivation. And the only other character's motivation is to bring the honor back to her swordsmanship style. But as it turns out, her swordsmanship style is some kind of fucking magic sword shit that the evil cult is super interested in. So 1, it was special from the beginning, and 2, that's a cliche plotline anyway. The main cast is actually so weak, and I want to be clear, I don't dislike them. I don't really dislike almost anything about this show. It's just not engaging. It's not interesting. But the main cast is so weak that they give little flashbacks to the opponents occasionally that they will be fighting against. And in almost every occasion, I found myself passively rooting for the other team just because the other team were more interesting characters. And this wasn't like an active decision I was making because I didn't like the main cast. It was just the main cast leaves so little of an impression on you that I don't give a shit whether they win or not. It doesn't matter if they win or not. Everyone else they went up against, minus the villains who are actually even less interesting than they are just more interesting than them. And so you obviously want to root for them instead. Another thing I'm going to talk about, and this is the only part of the show I actively dislike, is when it was a cool martial arts tournament where people were doing improbable martial arts things, I thought it was pseudo-interesting. I mean, honestly, let's be real here. It was always kind of boring. But whenever they introduced the magic and borrowing powers from the gods, whenever the supernatural elements of this show entered, my interest in it plummeted off of a cliff. And my enjoyment of the show is inversely proportional to the amount of magic there's in there. You think borrowing elements from like supernatural creatures would be interesting and would be my kind of thing. But the thing is, they just use them for like attacks and explosions. It's never anything creative. They don't have any special powers. It's just, now I have a big hammer, and that's all it is. So the last 3 episodes are so filled with the supernatural bullshit that like, I'm not sure fully what was happening, partially because I was tuning out and partially because I don't think you're supposed to fully understand. They kind of explain a bit after the fact. Which brings me to another issue about the show that I don't have a problem with, but I am aware of. Apparently, in 13 episodes, they tried to adapt 100 chapters. And I can tell some stuff got cut out, because at one point, the main character just learns how to hit pressure points from an old man off camera, and the old man has maybe 1 minute of screen time in total. I assume that was an entire arc in the original manhwa. There's probably a few other scenes that were probably supposed to be added in there, but I'm not sure how much damage was done or if the original just had absolutely terrible pacing. Like I said, I ignored it and I probably should have. The thing about God of High School, though, is even when the supernatural elements aren't happening, it's still just a bunch of fights with no real engagement or reason to care about what is happening. And to be honest, I was bored halfway through the first episode of the show. And I think making me care about at least one thing is the bare minimum a series can do. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic. You're on Voy of Hope. Bye-bye.